Back on the ship, we spend another night circling the island, this time from the north to the east. Entering another majestic fjord, we arrive at the town of Cedars-Ferdin. This tiny settlement was settled by Norwegian fishermen in 1848. It was the first town in Iceland to have electric lights, and the first to have a telegraph cable link to Europe. Today, it boasts a flourishing art scene and has inviting hiking trails. We departed by bus over the mountains to visit the town of Reyðarfjörður, which is located on another fjord a few hours away. As we ascended the steep mountain road, the land became rocky and rugged. At the top of the mountain, we encountered a lake being fed by the melting snow. With the warm July weather, the snow was melting rapidly, meeting the lake and the waterfalls. Descending the other side, we found ourselves in farmland with horses and pasture. At the shore of the fjord was the site of the remains of a timber church that had been built here around 1000 AD. The remains were rediscovered in 1938, and an archaeological examination resulted in the discovery of altar stones and crosses, along with 60 graves containing both pagans and Christians. Upon arriving in Reyðarfjörður, our first stop was the Icelandic War Museum, which was on a hillside above the town. Up to 5,000 British, American, and Canadian soldiers were stationed here during the Second World War. It was an important location because of its proximity to the North Atlantic shipping routes. Outside of the museum were trucks and other military vehicles, along with barracks built by the Americans in 1943. By 1941, there were 25,000 Allied soldiers in Iceland, and their impact on the country was enormous. Inside the museum were displays of weapons, uniforms, and other memorabilia, plus a life-size likeness of Adolf Hitler. Returning to Reyðarfjörður, our first stop was at a waterside restaurant having a rustic seafaring atmosphere. There we were treated to local delicacies, including fermented shark fin, dried fish, and brennivin, schnapps also known as the Black Death. Before leaving town, we stopped at a Maritime Museum, located in a building built in 1816, making it the oldest structure in town. It's called the Gammelbud, or Old Shop. Inside, we saw a great many local artifacts, including whaling tools, a fishing boat, dentistry tools, a homemade lathe, meat grinder, and antique firearms. On our ride back to the ship, we passed children playing at a giant chutes and ladders game, as well as another campsite. And as our bus climbed over the mountain, we learned about the stone markers which had been used by travelers to find their way over the mountains in the winter, before there were paved roads and GPS. As in other parts of this country, as we reached the top of the mountain, there were snowmelt lakes and a view from the top of the fjord and the village on the other side, followed by a magnificent descent, allowing us to admire the streams and valleys until we arrived at our waiting ship. On this day, our traveling companions decided to visit the Scalenes Nature and Heritage Center, where they saw an abundance of puffins, terns, and other birds living on the cliffs overlooking the fjord. This remote, private location is the ideal home for over 40 different species of birds. A few of the puffins seemed especially cooperative in having their pictures taken. A short overnight voyage brought us to the town of Upiville. We entered the fjord, passing fish farms and arriving at the town, which was quite small, consisting of a handful of houses on the shore. After a short tender ride, we boarded buses and left the village for an excursion along the shore of the fjord. The hills and rock formations were quite dramatic, but there was little else to see. We made a stop at the Necrohuffis Waterfall, which is the lowermost fall on the Fossa River, plunging 15 meters into a narrow churning pool. Then it was back to the tender and we were on our way. Our last stop before returning to Reykjavik was supposed to be the Westman Island. We were looking forward to it because it had recently experienced an active volcano and has excellent bird watching, but the weather conditions would not permit disembarkation. So we departed for Reykjavik, giving us more time to tour the capital city before leaving Iceland. Upon returning to Reykjavik, we were presented with an unstructured day, and the four of us decided to just walk around the city and see what attracted our attention. We visited a small park at the base of the hill that had some interesting artwork, and then worked our way up the hill, noting some of the unique houses along the way. Continuing to the top of the hill, we took time to admire and tour Pilgrim's Church. This Lutheran church was built between 1945 and 1986. It has a distinctive 75-meter tower and is Iceland's largest church. In front of the church is a statue of Leif Erikson, son of Iceland, which was given to the city by the United States on the 1000th anniversary of the discovery of the island. As we entered the church, we were impressed by the open, spacious field and the elegant Scandinavian design. The great pipe organ was particularly impressive, with 5,275 pipes. Leaving the church, we wandered back through town, being left with the impression that Iceland is a place worth seeing, with magnificent scenery, exceptional bird colonies, pristine villages, and wonderful, energetic, forward-thinking people. It is nothing you would expect from a place called Iceland.